Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. I am your host, Jan Washington. This is a weekly chat about socially conscious topics impacting the culture. I would like to extend my gratitude in you listening to this podcast. It means everything to me, and I hope it is clear that this subject matter is so important to me. I care about our people, our future, and making a positive change in this nation. Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. Today we have a special guest. We have Michael T. Williams, host of the new YouTube series called Microphone Mike. And he also is the host of the Real Talk, Real Solutions podcast. He's back again, and we would like to welcome him as we will get into some stories today. Welcome, Mike. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, definitely. Always good to connect with other content creators of color. So definitely want to get into some stories with you here that we've been going over. This first one here is about the esteemed Howard University. Right now, the students are entering about the fourth week of protests due to poor housing conditions. And so I think the president of the college has finally addressed the protests publicly, and they're basically wanting the students to cease the protest. And I think more recently it was mentioned that people had lost jobs due to the protests. And so the reason for the protest was due to the poor housing conditions. There were notes of was it rodents and roaches and mildew and molding in the dorms. What do you think about what's going on at Howard?
To me, it's like a sad situation because you have to have, in order to be a successful student, you have to have like good living conditions because it all plays like a part in the bigger picture of success.
Right.
And rodents, I know, no, roaches, all of that can be like a big distraction on like already stressed out students, like due to the pandemic and,
Oh,
having to wear the masks everywhere and just, I don't know, it's just like, and then it's just not a good look overall. So I just feel like they definitely have to do better and just do right by these students.
I agree. I had looked up how much the tuition was for Howard to try to get an understanding of how much these kids are paying. And I had figured it was a lot, but it right now, according to their website for 2021, 2022 expenses, the estimates are 48,114, and the breakout of that is what 9,300 for housing. So essentially almost $10,000 of their tuition is going toward housing. And how many students that's impacting, what, 100,000 or so. They should have the funds to take care of these matters, you know what I mean, especially with what they're paying.
Yes, $48,000 is that's almost like an astronomical amount of money, like per semester.
Yes.
Um, that's $100,000, for one whole school year almost. So for $100,000, like there should be really good accommodations.
Right. And I know, like, back in the day, and I didn't go to HBCU. I almost did. I wanted to go to Lincoln, but I ended up going to Mizzou instead. That was pretty close by. But I had some pretty good friends that went to HBCUs, and you heard stories that, maybe they didn't have air condition, or some of the books weren't in the best condition or whatever like that. But nothing of this magnitude was going on then. So it's just really disheartening with, I'm sure the costs have went up over the years and the conditions have just gotten worse. So you wonder how the pandemic has played a part in that. Um, I think I heard that they use third party services that services the building, and I guess that's part of the delay. But yeah, we definitely want better for our students, especially for their parents who are supporting them and paying this hefty tuition, you know?
Right. And I'm kind of wondering, like, was this an issue like before the pandemic, or is it like you were saying, is it due to the pandemic?
Right.
Changes definitely need to be made because it sounds unacceptable.
Right. I wonder like if there was a period of time when they weren't in the dorms, if that was when things got bad or what have you. But I mean, it needs to be addressed. It seems like the administration has been slow to correct the issue and make any statements in favor of it. I know we haven't heard a lot of from our well-known Black celebrities who alumni of HBCUs. It'd be nice if they would, make some sort of statement or something, right?
Right. And I don't think this like an issue like this is something that's like solely exclusive to HBCUs. Let's just make that clear. I'm sure like a variety of like all kinds of schools, may
Yeah.
have problems with like dorms and stuff like that because I think a lot of times schools want to allocate most of the money in like other places and not so much that part. So
Mm.
I don't think nobody insinuated that, but just to be clear, like this may not be a problem, like, exclusive to HBCUs.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the for the breakout of the tuition, the majority of it is going toward your tuition. So that makes me think that, they're paying the professors that, that are teaching
Football and stuff like that, the
things like
sporting.
right.
Yeah.
Because that is one of the lower.
That brings in a lot of money, like the sporting part and the band and all of that too.
Right. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I admire the students for taking a stance, though, and coming together in unity that way. That was kind of good for them. It's kind of sad that they're not getting the support that they're seeking, but the unification of the students, I kind of thought that was good to see them come together like that.
Yes, and just to organize and like work towards one goal, very good to see.
Yes, I like that for sure. Let's see. Yeah, so I mean, there'll be more coming along with this. It seems definitely looking for a solution still. So we will keep you guys informed of that. The next topic we were going to touch on was about the lack of media coverage in cases of people of color and cases of missing individuals. And so we saw this recently with the recent disappearance of Gabby Petito, which, unfortunately, it was discovered she did pass away, and the disappearance and passing of Jelani Day and some other cases. I found some information online, and this has actually been talked about in the news. So I want to get your thoughts on this part as well. That one of the reasons it was thought to be a lack of coverage in the media for toward cases of people of color was due to something referred to as missing white woman syndrome. And so this term, or this theory, if you will, was coined by late journalist Gwen Ifill, and it's basically stating that media commentators refer to the media coverage, especially on television, of missing person cases involving young white upper middle class women or girls compared to the alleged relative lack of attention toward missing women who are not white, women of lower social classes, and missing men or boys. And so this theory is thought, that there's more concern, there's more attention for stories of white people versus minorities. Do you feel like the media kind of has an agenda and that we kind of see a certain scenario played out in cases of whites versus minorities?
Yes, that journalist who made that statement was definitely on to something because I don't think there's an agenda. I just think America cares more about white women and white people in general.
Mhm.
Because I recently, back in, well, I just discovered that in 2020, the year of, when the pandemic first started, like 543,000 Black people or people of color went missing in 2020 alone. 543,000. That's a lot of people. And
Yes.
when you look at, the news overall, like how many, I don't see that many people, or not even a 1%, I would say, being reflected on television. And I actually interviewed uh, a mother whose child went missing on Mother's Day back in like 1992, and that child still has not been found today.
Mhm.
And she was telling me about like how little news coverage they got when that happened because it was a little girl that went missing as well as a little boy. The girl was 3 years old, and the little boy was 2.
Mhm.
And they went missing on Mother's Day in 1992 and still have not been found today. And they didn't receive like any, according to the mother, hardly any news coverage.
Mhm.
And I think we've seen even white children being covered. John Benet Ramsey,
Right.
bunch of other kids. Casey Anthony's daughter, just a lot. And I just think in general, they care more about white people. And then there have even been like a couple cases maybe where they will have some Asian women in there, but it's mainly like white women. And I think they will include Asians every now and then because they are known to be so subservient. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
So they accept people a little bit more who just roll with their agenda, but they're never going to be completely unbiased towards anybody but themselves.
Right. And I guess, the question is out there of why. I feel like part of the reason why is due to a racial bias. Like you said, there's just a sympathy for whites and white women and children that blacks just don't get. We don't get that same sympathy and understanding and care and the fear. We don't get that same set of emotions in our stories.
And I think this is exactly why they started the movement Black Lives Matter. It's part of it. This is right here is a prime example.
Mhm. Definitely. And there's some other like really good organizations like the Black and Missing. They have like their own database that they, work with families to try to get movement in cases. Um, we talked about Jelani Day in his really, sad case where he was missing for a great period of time before they released really significant details in the case. And then it resulted in him passing away, and his death was ruled a drowning. And his family still sort of disputes that fact, but we just don't have a lot of, we didn't get the coverage and investigation from what the family has said, where it could have made a difference. You know what I mean? Maybe we would have some more answers and what happened to him, which would be a preventative for other young people. He's a college student getting ready to pursue a doctor, um, aspirations to be a doctor and such, and all of that. Just really sad case in his manner. But had we had more coverage, it could have made a difference. I really believe that. So that's why this is so important that, and I admire his mother for putting pressure on the media because she did that. And I think the coverage that he did get, a significant amount was due to the pressure she kept putting on the mainstream media.
Yeah, and do you see how you basically have to force their hand though? You have to do, so much like applying so much pressure to get them to even pay just a little bit of attention, even when you have like those individuals that are like doctors and stuff, they're still not that, anybody's life is more like a doctor is more important than a janitor, but even when you have those people, with like, I guess, in a heading towards like a prestigious position, there's still like a lack of like just simple care towards us as individuals. And it just shows, the value that they place on us subconsciously.
Yes, definitely. And I think assumptions are made, because he was a young single man, and maybe he just went off on his own, or maybe I think there's an assumption that maybe he committed suicide. I think is what they want us to believe ultimately, that he, you know, jumped in this river and that's how he died. And his family disputes that. But with us not having any other information, it seems like that's what the media wants us to believe.
Right. And they want us to believe that kind of narrative, but then they make this a whole just complete other narrative about, the people they want to shed a light on. Like those people are complete victims, but somehow, the assertion is made that maybe we just killed ourselves, or we just ran out, or we're on a drug binge or something like that. And they just just put a halo around, the people they want to shine a light on.
Right. It makes me think about another case where this was Kendrick Johnson, and they made a documentary about it on Amazon. It was a few years back, and where he was missing, and then they found him in the school in the wrestling mat rolled up. You may remember people talking about that
Mhm.
one. And so it's basically still not resolved. It's, I think the family kind of has a theory of what happened, and that like someone in the school that he had a dispute with put him in the situation and caused his death, but they have not been able to successfully get any charges. And everybody in the town, because it's like a small town, say it's Georgia, and it's just really difficult to get any movement in their investigation, and they just really hit a brick wall with everything that they going through. And just watching that documentary is just so disturbing, but it's something that we need to be aware of, because it could happen to us. It can happen to a family member, or our loved one or friend. So yeah. But I definitely agree that we have to put pressure on them and utilize our Black media. That was one thing I noticed with Jelani Day's family. They utilize, outlets like Roland Martin, the BNC news outlet, and put that pressure on mainstream. And I think mainstream had no choice but to respond. So we just have to keep putting pressure on them.
Yeah, you definitely have to try different tactics, because now you have a lot of times now where they are watching our news outlets as well. Like you'll see a lot of people when you watch like Roland Martin and you see like clips of it online, you'll see like a little bit of everybody underneath there. So yeah, there are like good tactics you can try, because if they're not going to look out for us, we definitely have to look out for ourselves.
We do. Yeah, and I think in utilizing social media, too. I mean, it's like the biggest way to communicate to the masses in a short period of time. So definitely feel like that's a way to get information. I know I was thinking about another case of a missing person, and I see that there's a positive update. I don't know if you heard, they had mentioned this on the Breakfast Club. There was a young girl out of New Jersey, a little Black girl that was missing, and they found her. Her name was Jashea Moore, and they did find her safe. So, but the fact that it was starting to get like more buzz online, I think helped. You know what I mean? Like the Breakfast Club is a huge media outlet, as we know, especially in the urban markets. And I think just in the last day and a half, someone called in saying, "Hey, there's this missing girl," and nobody's saying anything about it. And they started just, what, and it started kind of picking up. I actually haven't heard anything on mainstream news. There's a story out here on NBC I'm seeing, but other than that Breakfast Club blurb about it, I mean, I think that helped.
Yeah, and I don't know anything about that case in particular, but I don't know if you know the old television show that was called Unsolved Mysteries. Like it was coming on back in the 80s and 90s, and I
Yeah.
believe maybe yeah, they brought it back on Netflix, and they did an episode about these two children back in the 90s that came up missing from a certain park. And I believe these cases were connected because the same two children were involved in each case that the missing children talked to, like right before they went missing. It was just a lot of similarities. It was the
Mhm.
same park on the same day. The same two children came and wanted to play with each child that came up missing.
Oh,
And of course, these were both Black children. And at different points in the cases, they basically tried to criminalize the parents, but the parents,
oh, oh.
I feel, had no knowledge of it. Like the one
Mhm.
parent, the first mother, they tried to say, she sold her child for drugs, but they weren't able to find any information on that. And the second child, they kind of criticized the mother because years later, like I think the child went missing in like 1993, but like by 1998, she tried to cash in a life insurance policy due to the fact that, the child still had not been found and it's been 5 years. And they
Okay.
criticized her for that, which I don't really see anything, necessarily suspicious about that. But
Mm.
no,
Huh.
they still found no information. So it just goes back to the point where, they just really look at us with like an eagle suspicious eye, you know.
Yeah. They do. And I guess, knowing what we know about those police shows, they always, look at the parties close first, before
Mhm.
they expand outward for their investigation. But we just want that same attention and energy. And, in our cases of African Americans and people of color.
Yeah, and we deserve it because we, helped build this country and continue to build up on it. So we deserve it, and like we say, you know, our Black Lives Matter too. So
Yeah, I definitely personally want to get more involved with these matters of missing. I'm actually thinking about starting like a second initiative with my podcast. I don't know how I'm going to flesh that out just yet, but I really feel strongly about it. And I know that there's ways that I can get involved and do more. So yeah, I appreciate going over this story with you because I really feel strongly about the missing. It's really a big, um, it impacts us hugely in Missouri. There's so many unsolved missing people of color that have, you know, still unresolved.
right. They definitely need attention because I couldn't imagine having somebody go missing and then you not just, for years and years at a time, you just never know what happened to that person. But you
Right.
just know they're out there somewhere, but you don't know what happened. I couldn't
That,
imagine.
oh yeah, definitely. So I feel like there's a way I can um, do something about that. So I'm working on that. Um, yeah, I really feel strongly about that. So I feel like talking about these matters are definitely something that we need to do, so that we can spread the word and try to get attention and amplify, our stories because they are important, and our children are our future. You know what I mean? So yeah, definitely. Okay. Anything other thoughts on these stories, Mike?
Um, the person I interviewed, her name, if anybody wants to just look her up, her name is Crenice Jones. I think it's spelled Kreneice. She went missing in Woodville, Mississippi back in like 1992. And she went missing also with a 2-year-old child named Lemoyne Allen. They traveled from like Louisiana to Woodville, Mississippi for like a Mother's Day event at a church, and then after that they went to um, a house that was owned by one of the people they traveled with, and that is where the two children came up missing. So I guess just if anybody could go look up her pictures, Crenice Jones and Lemoyne Allen, and just I guess just share them. Perhaps you never know who might see something, and we just need to value ourselves. So if we don't even start valuing ourselves as a community, how do we expect anybody else to value us? Like we are beautiful. We don't need, the Western white standards of beauty to feel important. We don't need. I know I'm going into like a whole nother direction, but I guess the ultimate theme of what I'm saying is we need to love ourselves and value ourselves.
I agree, definitely. All right. Well, that's awesome. I agree wholeheartedly. And remind us again, Michael, of your YouTube channel and your podcast.
The podcast is Real Talk, Real Solutions. You can follow me on Instagram at Real Talk 006 or subscribe to my YouTube channel, Microphone Mike. Mike is spelled Mike. I'll be posting like a lot of videos on YouTube, but my podcast is still there. Real Talk, Real Solutions podcast.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. And yeah, so we'll have that information for you guys to check out Mike. He has some really great content and he just recently started his YouTube channel, so we definitely want to support him. All right. So and we appreciate you on the show again. Thank you again, Mike. And we thank you guys for listening.
At this time, we are going to go ahead and conclude this episode. We do appreciate you listening. We do invite you to follow us on social media. On Instagram, it is Woke by Accident Podcast. On Twitter, it is Woke by. The Gmail is wokebyaccident@gmail.com. And we are available on all of your favorite streaming platforms. Please go out and follow us, share, leave a review, tell a friend. And every time you listen, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you again, and take care.